Good morning, everybody. My name is Beth Henshaw, and on behalf of Amy Solik, Diane Mack, and Sarah Keatley, we do want to welcome you all here to our third in a series of webinars. Today, we'll be talking about making the ask and inviting fairgoers to become a part of 4-H as a member or a volunteer. We've had a number of you on our previous webinars, and just to remind you what those topics are, and that our last one will be next week, where we'll be talking about challenges or opportunities, how to deal with conflict, complaints, and steps to a grievance plan. If you remember, all of these webinars have been recorded, and if you go to the State 4-H website, right under What's Hot, you'll see a link to county fairs, and you can go and see the PowerPoints from these webinars and also the recording. And just as a reminder, the PowerPoint for today's webinar is posted there as well if you like to follow along in that way. So a little bit about our objectives of why we put together a webinar series. We know that it does take a lot of time and effort to put on county fairs. And so we want them to be the very best that they can be. We also know that potential 4-H families come to the fair to learn about joining the local 4-H program. And lastly, the county fair provides fair attendees a glimpse into the health and vibrancy of your local 4-H program. So all of these are reasons why we've put this series of webinars together this year.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Diane Mack. And several years ago, in working with a marketing strategist, Lori Bauer, Lori was a past 4-H member and a past 4-H agent who now owns her own marketing firm. So we worked with her in actually interviewing moms who were not familiar with 4-H to get their input onto how they see 4-H or if they're aware of it. And at the top of the screen there, you can see that there's basically a pattern of how a person would go through to join 4-H, to consider it. So there's awareness of a need, basically an awareness of 4-H, that consideration, an inquiry, and then go ahead and joining. So again, through our insight, we interviewed those moms who weren't familiar with 4-H, and they were all across the state. Here's some of the things we found. First of all, she is aware of 4-H, but that's positive, but she thinks it's an organization for kids in the country who have animals. And the key point here is that she's seeing 4-H at county and state fairs, but she doesn't see it in the newspapers or at school. She does have that positive perception of 4-H and thinks it teaches, responsibility and commitment. And she does struggle with how she herself teaches integrity, responsibility, and service to others in her children. It's just never occurred to her to seek more information about it because it's not on her radar. She doesn't know that it has a connection to Kansas State University or to the local county, and she's not aware of that whole club structure that's around her as well.
Okay, and fast forward a couple years to when National 4-H Council developed and created the 4-H Growth Here campaign. They also did their research. Their research focused on Sarah, quote unquote, the alumni mom, typically in her 30s and 40s. That's most likely from Generation X. So they looked at her as having a 4-H experience at some point in her childhood, but she's not been involved since her childhood. So she has some ideas around what it means to be a 4-H'er, and that also, goes back to what her specific experience was. But Sarah, when they consider Sarah, she represents 35% of our alumni base. She's looking for easy ways to donate, so that's a good thing in terms of financial potential. She's really highly likely to volunteer her time Okay, so when we're thinking about how challenging it is to find volunteers, this is where we need to start looking more. Again, she's that millennial or Gen X mom. She's got school-age kids herself. And the messaging that's really appealing to her are those things that the campaign highlights, and some of the very exact things that Diane shared on that slide before. Those core pyramid of values, responsibility, leadership, life skills, all those things that our campaign is built around. She's a key consumer. She's really kind of a resource engine. She's looking, to donate financially. She's looking to donate her time, and she could be engaged to not only get involved but advocate and help us spread the word. So again, consider these moms when putting together any type of marketing effort, especially at your county fair when they're likely to be in attendance. When Beth and Diane and Sarah and I sat down to sort of outline today's webinar, the big take-home message, the moral of the story is just this. We all sort of place the county fair, and we know our families and our kids do. We place it on this pedestal as it's like, the end-all be-all of the 4-H year. And really, it's no more important than club days. It's no more important than achievement night or what have you. But it's obviously gets the most spotlight, if you will. And so it's a tremendous opportunity to showcase the rest of the 4-H year. Okay, so we've got this big, gigantic spotlight on this very intense week. And we need to do a better job of showcasing what happens behind the scenes, what leads them up to this point. All of the club work, the project-based learning, the events and activities, the youth development, the volunteer development that all leads up to this. And then the follow-up, the ask per se, is to invite them to participate in the rest of the year. So sort of shift your paradigm of thinking of the county fair and realize what a tremendous opportunity this is, marketing-wise.
We know that there is a cost to having a marketing display, but I want everybody to think about that as an investment in your program and in the future of your program. This is a multiple year campaign, so any of the items and components that you purchase will be able to be used multiple years. And the sooner you have these items, the more often you can use them, making them an even better investment. In our clothing project, we think about cost per wear. Well, this is going to be cost per use, and it becomes very economical when we think about those opportunities. People come to the fair to learn about 4-H, so we want to make sure that we have what it is that they're looking for. If your display is made up of several components, it can be used in flexible ways. We know that you won't always have space to do your entire display. There may be times that you won't have a table, but you can think about how to use those components in creative and interesting ways and in different places, all for the purpose of marketing our Kansas 4-H program. And if you think about that, there's all kinds of opportunities to use your display or the components of your display. Some of those are back to school nights, maybe community health fairs or a spring fair. Maybe your community has a farm show. The local library. Think of other places like the library. Where are young people going? Where is it important that parents and kids will be that they could see your display? What about your office library during the month of October? And what about taking those pieces with you when you do school programs. The other thing to think about as well is if you've got a local ambassador program, how could they use these at the different things that they do as well?
So this slide gives you kind of just a smattering of what's available to you when you think about building kind of a promotional booth, if you will. These are all hyperlinked. So if you've pulled up the PowerPoint in the PDF form from our resource page, if you click on the links, it'll take you directly to the KSRE bookstore where these are available. There's this 3-panel display, which is really handy. It's sized to fit a lot of the FNP felt display boards that many of you have in your offices. I do want to put a little shout out for that tablecloth that we just made available. It's double-sided, one side KSRE and then the other side KSRE with the 4-H clover, utilizing the co-brand there, which makes it very usable for virtually any event that you have at your office. Banners. We have banners in many different shapes. We've got the vertical ones like you see in this picture, but we also have horizontal ones with grommets. They're vinyl. They're really weather resistant. You can zip tie them to a gate or a panel. And you can even customize them. So give Mandy at the bookstore a call, tell her what you want. If you have a specific photo in mind and it's of the higher quality and it can get blown up that big, you can make your own customized banner. So lots of different options there. Hand fans, you see them in that picture there laying on the table kind of in the center. Those are great for county fairs. Those go like hotcakes. Promotional cards and flyers, we have a couple different options there. There's half sheet size, there's full sheet where you can run your local clubs on the back side. Pens, pencils, cups, Post-its, lots of fun things. There's USB drives we've added most recently. And then obviously you want to give them some material to take home with them that sort of makes that ask, gives them a little more background on what it means to be a part of your local program. So we've got that new family guide and the project selection guide that goes into a bit more detail about the various projects that are available. When you put them all together, it makes for a really nice display, okay? And, some of those things are things that you can print off from your own office. You don't necessarily have to buy them from the bookstore. Other things, like hand fans, banners, the 3-panel display, those are things that you need to purchase. So now is the time to think about making those orders. It might be too late come July when you think about it last minute. So again, put a little thought into it now and it won't seem quite so overwhelming and come summertime. Couple other suggestions for your promotional booth. It's great to have somewhat of a static display, and it's better than nothing, but what's really nice is when you're able to capture some data. So, ways to collect information on the folks that are interested. Sign up for more info. Don't only ask for those that want to join 4-H as members, but also put that call out, are you looking ways to volunteer your time? And you might just grab an additional volunteer or two. Raffle prizes, door prizes, those kinds of things are great incentives. They're likely to, fill out the little info card and drop it in the jar, especially if there's candy or some kind of little goodie to take. But you can capture the information that you want on that card. And it's hyperlinked there. And I'll show you at the end of today's webinar. I did just make a very generic sort of info card template for you to use. It gets their contact number and an email, ages of their children, and if they're interested as an adult volunteer, what project areas might they be interested in. And make sure you advertise your social media pages. Gain some followers so that they know you're active and they sort of can do a little research on their own that way as well. Okay, when considering the fair, working with the media, I know a lot of your local newspapers in our smaller counties are really good about giving good coverage in the local newspaper. Radio spots, some TV, news channels are willing to come out and give you some shout outs and free media time. These are the 5 functions of a pitch and the things you want to cover when approaching your different media outlets. Okay. Relevance. You want to get the right people to care. Okay. And why should they care? Comprehension. You want it to move to that next level. Get the people to understand what it is you're doing. You want to build credibility. They need to believe in you. The urgency. It's got to be timely. It's got to be relevant. Get those people to act. And vitality. Getting the people to participate. Okay, so this goes beyond just marketing at the county fair. These are general principles when working with your different media outlets throughout the entire year. But these are those 5 functions of that pitch. This is a slide hopefully you've seen before. This gives some of the messaging framework behind our 4-H Grows Here campaign. I have shared this with ambassador teams, with volunteers, with you as staff. So hopefully it's not the first time you're seeing it, but if it is, this is a really helpful piece to print off and have at the ready, sort of, next to your phone, or, tape it somewhere up close to your computer screen. Should somebody call, whether they're looking to join, whether they're looking to volunteer, if it's a media person, you want to have this sort of at the ready. Does a really good job. It's a brief synopsis of what we do in the 4-H Youth Development Program, and it goes through the who, the what, the how, and the impact. But this is some of that messaging that sort of speaks to the heart of the campaign. And so when it doesn't necessarily flow right off your tongue, this is a good piece to have, like I said, at the ready. I also have posted on our resource page a little more in-depth PDF of the brand campaign and its messaging framework. It goes a little more in depth than this piece. Be sure to check it out on our resource page. Some key items that are available, because the county fair is a good time to market not only your local 4-H program, but KSRE in general. A lot of your fair boards have some type of open class or exhibit building, commercial building where different booths are set up, and so there are some materials available to you if you put that together. These are some banners that they have developed around the 5 grand challenges, and Megan Macy did say that these would be available to you. I don't know that there are multiple sets, so if you're wanting to use these, you might put your name in early so that you can guarantee that they're available to you. But these would be really helpful throughout the year, not just at the county fair. So if you have ag expos or health fairs, whatever your opportunity is, these would make for a really great booth space. I want to touch briefly on utilizing social media. And we could really spend a lot of time talking on this slide, but these are some of the high points. Leading up to your fair, during the fair, and after the fair. What do you want to capture and what do you want to highlight on social media? And I know most of us are thinking Facebook when we talk social media. One of the big things that's been really helpful that drives some foot traffic is to post daily schedules. And make it big enough so that people can read. I've seen some on Facebook, so the effort is there, but it's the carry through is a little difficult because the image size is really small. So post your daily schedules. What's happening, when, where, how do they get there? Don't assume that the general public knows what building or what barn something is happening in. But that helps build anticipation. And I'm actually going to ask Beth to unmute. She went to a media training this week, and really they kind of founded on this idea of building anticipation. So I'll let her elaborate just a little bit.
So in that time leading up to your fair, you want to be using your social media to build anticipation. So what kinds of things are you doing in the office to get ready for the fair? How about when the box of ribbons comes in, opening that box and shooting a picture out of those ribbons, or the trophies getting labeled? Any of those kinds of things that are going to help people get excited for the fair. You want to take plenty of time before the event ever happens to build that anticipation. And by putting those out there, you're giving other people the opportunity to share in that anticipation and build your audience even more.
Thanks, Beth. You want to post things that sort of capture their attention. One big general picture of a busy 4-H building doesn't necessarily focus on one particular thing. So try and find photos. A good example is, actually this picture on the slide, that is an amazing photo, but it speaks right to the heart. It's compelling. It kind of pulls at your heartstrings. So post pictures. One good way of advertising your food stands is to post pictures of your actual food items. Nothing sells like a really enticing picture of a slice of pie. But what would even make that slice of pie better is an adorable smiling child next to it. People are much more likely to buy things or donate from children than they are from me. So the same sort of rule of thumb applies to this as well. Go live on Facebook. It's a little intimidating the first couple times you do it. Once you've done it once or twice, it becomes really easy. But that also helps build anticipation. So you want to let them know ahead of time that you'll be going live, and it sort of leads them up to that event. So these are just a few of the things that came to mind. If you've got a fair queen or king, if you've got a raffle drawing on Saturday night, if you have, a big grand drive or a sale of champions, some kind of opening ceremony for your fair, those would be the types of events that people would want to watch. Grandparents from afar, friends across the miles, etc. So if you let them know that we'll be going live Friday night from the sale of champions, that sounds exciting. And then obviously follow up and go live that time. Post videos of short interviews with kids. It doesn't necessarily have to be done live, but videos are super interactive and they'll get more traction on your social media pages than just a static photo or a simple text post. So grab some kids, use that public speaking, to your advantage, and ask them some questions about their projects, ask them questions about, why they chose to exhibit what they did, and post those videos. Post pictures that tell a story. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, and make sure you're using hashtags. So hashtags, for those of you that don't quite understand, it's kind of like a handle, if you will, like on a CB radio, but it's searchable. So our hashtag, or like our handle, would be KS4H. If it's appropriate, use the other hashtags, True Leader or hashtag 4H Grown. And then we can search through social media for those hashtags. So if Midway District uses hashtag True Leader, I can do a True Leader search and it will pull up her posts and anybody else that has used that hashtag. So collectively, we have a much larger voice if we're using the same hashtags. So again, let your kids know about those hashtags. Let your really savvy social media moms use those hashtags, encourage them to use them. Again, if we're all shouting that same message, people are more likely to hear us than individual efforts. I wanted to share a little tip because I worry that not everybody realizes you can turn a PDF file into a JPEG or a PNG, like an image file. And so I'm actually going to stop my screen sharing and back out of the PowerPoint and pull up a PDF and walk you through these steps. Give me just a second to switch my screens around. Okay, so here is a PDF of a flyer that I put together. If you go over, now I will say this, you have to make sure somebody in your office has the full Adobe Reader or Acrobat program. If you have just the Reader version, it won't be near this easy, and you'll have to sort of go the back way. So from your file, when you have your PDF open, hover over File or click on File, then hover over Export To, and you have a couple different options. You could turn it into a Word document, spreadsheet, PowerPoint, or the image. The image is obviously what you want here, and then you can choose JPEG, these different options. I usually go PNG. I seem to have less problems with it. If you prefer JPEGs, that's fine. That you want to obviously select PNG. Once you do this, it'll give you the option of where to save your new image, but it converts it from a PDF file to obviously an image file, and then you can share that on social media. So you don't have to take pictures of hard copies anymore and post that, because I've seen that a lot on different social media pages, and sometimes it looks okay, but it would look much better if you've got that digital file of it. So that's my little tech tip of the day. Let me back out of this and get us back to our PowerPoint. Okay.
So in addition to all of the social media that you're putting together to encourage people to come to your fair and know about it, it's really important that your web presence is up to date. Your website is your permanent place to hang all of your fair information, and you want to drive your followers back there for information. One of the things that I've learned at a workshop recently is we need to look at social media as rented ground. You know, somebody else owns those things, and they change the algorithms, they change the rules from time to time, and it takes us a while to catch up with that. But our website is our land. And so we really want to make sure that we're driving people back there. So we want to put that web address in our social media posts so that people can go back there for more information. And if you remember when we talked on the last webinar about that first impressions worksheet, people a lot of times are going online. They're Googling before they ever go to the fair to find out some information about it. And so think about that first impressions worksheet. You know, what are all those things that people are going to look at? But some of the things that are really important for them to have a successful visit at your fair is there a one-page fair schedule somewhere where they can see everything that's going to happen and the times? Or are there daily schedules where they can really see what's happening each day and what time that would be available? And one thing that I think we sometimes forget is, what is the physical address of the fairgrounds? You know, not every fairgrounds is right in the middle of town by the ball field. Some of them are really kind of hard to find. And if it's not the community that you live in, or you're new in the community, you may not know where that is. So make sure people can find that physical address and be able to find your fairgrounds. And your web is a good place to put that on.
Just want to redirect everybody back to the resource page where you're finding the PowerPoint files, the recorded previous webinars, and all of the sort of corresponding pieces that we've made available to you. So again, I'm going to stop my screen sharing and back out and take you to that page so we can highlight what we've added for this week. Give me just a second to switch my screens around. Okay, so here we are on that resource page. You'll see the previous 2 recordings and the PowerPoint slides. Here are today's PowerPoint slides. And as we keep adding things, it's gotten kind of lengthy, but keep scrolling down through the resources from the previous 2 weeks. And we don't have quite as many on this. Let me refresh because actually I've added one and there it is. So here are the 2 pieces that go with today's. Here's that door prize info card, kind of the little sheet, or not sheet, it's like they print 6 to a page where they fill out their name, contact info, that kind of thing. And then here's the campaign messaging framework that would be really helpful to any media or even you if you end up writing some pieces or any newspaper inserts or interviews with TV news, that would be very helpful to you. But we did want to point out where these are all located. Okay.
All right, at this time, we have an opportunity for questions if you have those. And we've had some feedback in the chat box. So I wanna back up. Michelle said, that's a great idea. And she asked this question back when you were talking about having a booth at the county fair. And she said, Amy, I'll direct this to you. It's a great idea, but how do you have time to manage a booth? And she's asking that question. Nicole and Brandy had some feedback for her about how they put up some generic flyers in the booth and they rotate volunteers. Brandy talked about her 4-H ambassadors having shifts and having that booth. So Amy, did you have any other suggestions for Michelle?
Most of the booths I've put together don't necessarily need somebody to man them at all times. I think it would be smart, your higher sort of traffic events, you know, if you have a lot of people in the building one night and you know that because it's the auction meal or some other event that draws a large crowd, maybe take advantage of that and make a point of, you know, assigning some volunteers or yourself if you're available to, you know, take an hour shift or so. But generally speaking, I've designed my booths so that you don't have to have somebody there. I do think it's important to periodically walk by your booth. If it's unmanned, you know, keep it clean. If you're handing out candy, people are bad about leaving, you know, candy wrappers, etc. Cleaning out your jar of names where people put in, make sure it doesn't get too full, that sort of thing. Replenish, you know, any handouts that are running low or empty. You hope that they're all going out. So, you know, try to make somewhat of a static booth, but then, you know, like I said, if you can find a night or two where you could have an ambassador or a volunteer stay there for an hour, that would be helpful.
Great. Are there any other questions that you guys might have? You can ask those in the chat box. You can also unmute yourself at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen.